All right, man, peace. So, brothers, the last week and a half have been very difficult for Mr. Antonio Brown, the current superstar wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers and probably soon to be former superstar wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As I've noted in the past, there's no doubt in my mind that he is an agent of chaos, i.e. a narcissist out of control, unable to control that same energy that brought him to the position of prominence that he's currently in. Because once again, that feeling of self-belief, that quote-unquote narcissism per se, is something that you have to control when you're driven. Because if you don't control it, then you can become megalomaniacal and you can become self-destructive. And that's what we see with many major athletes in this society. And right now we're also living in the woke era. So that means that on top of being a megalomaniac, you add to that false delusions of grandeur pertaining to being a quote-unquote racial leader or understanding racial dynamics. Why do I bring that up? Because Antonio Brown is now under attack by many of the people who know him or knew him as a former member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of them being Mr. Ryan Clark, who is now a very high-profile NFL analyst on ESPN. Ryan Clark has made no bones about the many issues that he has had between himself and Antonio Brown in the past, particularly pertaining to Antonio Brown's narcissism and his out-of-control ego. Well, in light of Antonio Brown basically being revealed for everything that Ryan Clark has stated that he was, Antonio Brown has decided that he's going to strike back by calling him a quote-unquote Uncle Tom. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Man, Antonio Brown.
Racial epithets getting tossed, right?
Yeah, this is crazy. You know, Ryan Clark is a former Pittsburgh Steelers player. He played with Antonio Brown on the Steelers, and now he's an analyst on ESPN.
Very good analyst as well.
And after all the Antonio Brown drama where he allegedly got into it with Ben Roethlisberger and didn't play in the Week 17 game, Ryan Clark went on SportsCenter and basically called for the Steelers to ship Antonio Brown elsewhere. He needs a fresh start. He should play somewhere else.
I agree.
Antonio Brown saw the clip and commented and called him an Uncle Tom.
Let me say this. Antonio Brown also wants to be shipped out. It's just that he does not like the fact that Ryan Clark is chiming in on his personal situation with any advocacy for Antonio Brown being shipped out, because Antonio Brown knows what place is coming from. And let me say this. I'm not saying that Antonio Brown is wrong about Ryan Clark being a quote-unquote Uncle Tom, because he might be. Who the hell knows? But you have to qualify that statement. When you make that statement, you have to qualify it. You should be saying, this is why Ryan Clark is an Uncle Tom. This is what he's done in the past to basically backstab other so-called black players on the team, or this is how he got his job, so on and so forth. You just can't put that sentiment out there. That's why I call it a wokety-woke sentiment. Wokety-wokes, they like to say things and have no substance behind it.
But first, let me show you the video. Here's what set the whole thing up. Here's what Ryan Clark said on ESPN. Take a look.
This is where Mike Tomlin has to put his foot down and shop Antonio Brown. Now, obviously, you want to get something for him, right? He's one of the best wide receivers in the league. Matter of fact, he's one of the best football players in the league. No doubt. Juju Smith-Schuster has shown you he can be a number one.
Agreed.
Ben Roethlisberger speaks glowingly of James Washington, but this is about the fabric of the team. This is about the guy that goes Facebook Live as your coach is talking and leaks information outside the locker room that never should be there.
Yeah, that was bugged out.
This is about the guy that publicly talks about not getting the ball or issues with the offense coordinator.
Well, that's stuff that diva wide receivers do.
Knocks over garbage cans or knocks over Gatorade bottles and cans because he doesn't get the rock. At some point, when you're an organization that's built on team, organization that's built on integrity, you have to show the rest of the locker room that.
I think you have to move him because you're not winning with him. I think it's completely different if you're winning Super Bowls every 3 years or so. And he's catching 100 balls for 1,400 yards, and he gets mad because he's so passionate. When you're going 9-7, 10-6, maybe 11-5, when you're getting knocked out in the second round of the playoffs, maybe the third round of the playoffs, no, sometimes not even making the playoffs, it's like, okay, you know what? We can develop somebody else.
And will he be good going forward? Probably so. But you have to take that stand.
So that's
Now, Ryan Clark also told a story in which I believe it was when Mike Wallace was not re-signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Antonio Brown and him got into an altercation in practice after that because Antonio Brown was yelling at the defensive side of the football and also at the defensive coaches that they better not put their hands on him because he's the new number one guy now. So, I mean, that's part of that ego run amok that seems to have led to his downfall. And if he's not very careful, it's going to lead to even worse things because he could become disenfranchised very quickly.
Ryan Clark said, I thought he was respectful in his praise of Antonio.
He tried to be very, complimentary about.
Well, he tried to be diplomatic. He does not like Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown does not like him. We've known about this for a while. Ryan Clark has made it relatively plain that he does not like Antonio Brown.
About him as a player,
right?
But made it clear that he just doesn't think that his behavior off the field warrants him staying on the team.
The organization has to put their foot down at some point and do something about it. So Antonio Brown saw that clip that they posted, ESPN put on their Instagram, and he wrote back simply, "Uncle Tom."
Okay.
Terrell Pryor chimed in. See, this is why Terrell Pryor keeps getting cut, because he's a shit starter, obviously. That's why DJ Swearinger punked him in the preseason last year.
Okay, that's escalating things to. I mean, like you said, Ryan Clark, I think, clearly has some issues with Antonio Brown, but tried to keep it as professional as he could. He's an analyst; he has to give his opinion, right?
Well, look, there's only so personal Ryan Clark can make it, because at the end of the day, Antonio Brown is, as he himself admitted, as Ryan Clark himself admitted, Antonio Brown is a top 5 to top 10 overall player in the NFL. So, I mean, there's only so far Ryan Clark could take it.
So he did that, but for Antonio Brown to come back at him with Uncle Tom is just ratcheting things up.
Maybe Antonio Brown knows something. But if he knows something, then he should have put that in the tweet as well. He shouldn't just respond back with Uncle Tom.
Now you've made this like a very personal, just
because it is personal.
Just made it very aggressive.
The NFL is aggressive.
To use that phrase.
It seems like he's trying to attack Ryan Clark at his core, and it feels...
Because they have a personal beef, that's why. They have a personal beef.
Feels like...
If I was an advisor for Antonio Brown, I would have told him to not send that type of message out there. But if you are, make sure that you expound on it so that people understand where you're coming from, because already you're viewed as somebody who's not too stable, does not have much scope when it comes to your decision making, meaning you do things and you don't care how it affects others. And when you do things and you don't care how it affects others, that means that it's going to come back on you.
The equivalent of like a white person using the N-word to attack somebody based on race and hurt them. And it sounds like that's what...
Well, at the end of the day, the term Uncle Tom, when it's used between so-called black people, that discussion should be had only by so-called black people. It's really not incumbent upon somebody of another race to tell a so-called black person you should not call another so-called black person that. That's up to us to discern and decipher. And if the person who's called that does not like it, well, then he can handle it himself. But no, the Caucasian Jew or any other race, they don't really have the leeway to tell a so-called black person what he should call another so-called black person, because as I've already stated, Antonio Brown might know certain things about Ryan Clark. And I'll leave it at that. Am I saying that he does? Who knows? But on the other hand, he could just be another wokety woke who just decided that he was going to call somebody an Uncle Tom or a coon because he don't like them. So who the hell knows?
Antonio Brown is trying to do to Ryan Clark here.
From an African-American man to another African-American man, that's worse than using the N-word.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Now look at this. Antonio Brown called Ryan Clark Uncle Tom. I don't think that his woman is a so-called black woman. I mean, not that I care. No, I really don't care. It's up to him. That's his business. If she's willing to make him happy, that's his business. But, it's kind of Shannon Sharpish when you start throwing out those type of barbs and you with a woman of another race, or you are associated with people of other races. It's like, okay, you're going to open yourself up for criticism. So it's really going to be about what you care about.
Yeah, this is to say that you are really trying to dig at someone.
Ryan Clark just commented, by the way, just moments ago. What did he say? He said, I have a ton of nieces and nephews that I love so much, they all call me Ryan.
In other words, the people that I'm a real uncle to, they call me Uncle Ryan, not Uncle Tom. That was the joke.
The rest is just the rest. I'll let that be. No one wins here publicly. Let's all keep the same energy all the time. Happy New Year. So,
in other words, Ryan Clark is telling Antonio Brown, when I see you, I want to see if you have that same energy. He tried to act like he was keeping it positive, but he really was putting out that notion that I'm going to catch you somewhere. And we're going to find out if you're going to say the same thing when I catch you.
So he's trying to take the high road on this, but, I mean...
No, he ain't. Subliminally, he's letting Antonio Brown know he's going to catch him somewhere.
I mean, clearly he's emotional about it. You have to be, right? You just can't ignore that.
You can't. Someone.
Well, I'm pretty sure that he's perturbed about it. But, I mean, what else is he going to do? He's a grown man. So if you're a grown man and somebody levies an insult your way, if that person is not around, what are you going to do? You going to stomp around your house? You just respond to it how you see fit. And when you catch the person, you catch them and y'all discuss it or what have you.
Someone says that to you, he's definitely upset. It makes me think that there's something between these guys back from when they were teammates. Remember,
Clearly.
Ryan was a defensive back, right? So he was probably up against Antonio in practice.
Right, probably went in practice, played with each other for 4 years, so they know each other well.
Right.
So what does Antonio Brown do? He's got tons of advertisements. He's got endorsements. He's got he's got a future in the NFL. He's only 30 years old. You can't be just blasting everybody with racial epithets every time somebody criticizes you.
It depends on what he knows.
Look, to me, Antonio Brown is one of the best.
Antonio Brown, he called people Uncle Tom. He looked like he just came out the damn fields. The hell is he wearing? What type of hat is that?
Players, period, in the league, as Ryan Clark said. So someone's going to pick him up. He's going to play somewhere, but at some point...
Antonio Brown looked like a stylish slave. Come on, man. I'm just playing.
At some point, you got to understand, I don't know exactly what the nature of Antonio Brown and Bennett Roethlisberger's beef is, but...
Did he just call him Bennett Roethlisberger? Is his full name really Bennett? Or right now, they're just upset. Antonio Brown is very upset with Ben Roethlisberger. I think that Ben Roethlisberger has never liked Antonio Brown. He's never liked his attitude. And now he sees somebody that they can replace Antonio Brown with in Juju Smith-Schuster. So he's letting Antonio Brown know, look, you're not my number one option anymore. I could throw to whoever I want.
If they can't squash that, then maybe he's got to go.
But anyway, we'll see how things go. I do believe that Pittsburgh is going to trade him. I do believe that they should trade him. So peace.